That we can talk about. That's fine. That
Yeah,
was
so Susie and I had a great
fun.
lunch together. It was
Yeah.
really nice. I liked the Mexican food at this new place. I recommend it. It's called, oh, now I forget.
Now this is the former Cotillo's.
It's the former Cotillo's, and the waitress was really very so sweet. Anyway, I really the food was good. It was really good. I liked it a lot. They do not have a liquor license, however, so Susie and I need to bring our own beverages, perhaps. It's BYOB. And I'm looking forward to entertaining her around the pool here sometime this week.
She said,
Yeah, on Friday afternoon. Yeah, so that'll be fun. But I'll tell you something personal.
"Okay,
Back in the day when we first put in the pool, now this is like 40 years ago. And I'd invite people over to swim and we'd have parties and so forth. And I was always shocked that people would come and say, "Oh, I forgot my suit," and I'd perkily say, "Well, I have plenty. I can loan you one, won't you?" And they'd say, "No, I'm good. I'm good." Okay. Now, 40 years later, I now finally understand why people decided to offer that response to my invitation to, wearing their swimming suits around the pool, because it's like, oh my God, my body has fallen apart. And I now get it. Back in the day when I was a kid, and this reminds me also, back in the day when I was a kid, our family used to go to Massachusetts every year, which is where my father is from. And we would spend at least a full day from 8 in the morning till 8 at night at one of the local freshwater lakes. And we would get there, and my one Aunt Elda, would always come and say, "Oh my gosh, I forgot my bathing suit." And as a young girl, it was like, "What? So Uncle John, go back, go get her suit for her so she can enjoy being in the water with the rest of us." Now I finally understand. She didn't want to appear in a bathing suit. But finally at her funeral, there was one photograph, and I took a photograph of her in her bathing suit that I will have
nice."
for the rest of my life. But what I remember about her was just feeling so bad for her because she was in her regular street clothes when the rest of us were all, you know, walking around in our bathing suit.
Well, I
Now
guess
I
it means
get it. Now I
we've
get
got to
it,
bring back
Ross.
the 1920s bathing suits. They
Well,
were like
yeah.
ankle
Oh,
length and
yeah. Right, right. Well, this was more the 1950s bathing suits, so but I mean, what can I say? And it's not, I mean, out of shape for sure. Things are not placed in on my body the way they used to be in my 20s, if you understand. But
gravity
my
takes over for all
skin,
of us.
but my skin is so wrinkly. I need to iron it. I need to iron my body. That reminds me of a joke I saw, years ago, where this woman is trying to surprise her husband. So she opens the door when he comes home from work, and she's in the nude, and she says something like, "So, what do you think?" And his response is, "You need to iron it." Her body. which which is so true. And that reminds me of another funny thing I'll tell you on myself. Back in the day, my husband bought me from Frecon's fruit stand a collection of 6 different T-shirts, and they all had different fruits on them: apples and blueberries and peaches and raspberry or cherries. And these particular T-shirts were so long they came down to my knees. And so back in the day, I cut them off, you know, and cut them off so that I could, so that they looked better, and they were kind of short now. And I used to be able to wear them without a bra. Now I cannot. It's too dangerous. So there's another story about my aging body. And perhaps that will help. Those stories today perhaps will help dispel some of this really black depression that I'm feeling after the events of this weekend and this morning. So take it away, former Secret Service agent, and talk to me about your reflections about the attempted assassination and about Eileen Cannon's dismissal of the documents case just this morning. This is Monday, July the 15th. Talk to me, Ross. Bring me up a little bit somehow.
Well, with the majority of my career being spent having done protection, I'll admit that I have a little bit less of an expertise in the court system. I do know of Jack Smith, however, and I know he's no dummy. I don't think he would make the mistake she's saying he'd make. And that's just not what he does. We've been talking about projection.
Oh, yeah.
How not just the Republican Party, but more so the MAGA portion of the Republican Party says you're guilty of doing this, and it's really them. Mm-hmm. We've heard and heard and heard about Judge Juan Merchan in New York, who, for what we've been afforded to see of that trial, I think did a pretty good job. You know, we keep hearing about, Donald Trump was put on a gag order. Mm-hmm. Every criminal defendant, in fact, every participant in a criminal trial is on a gag order. Donald Trump was the only one who had to be told about it. And then, because he's being treated so badly, he was still given a bank of microphones every day to not express his First Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. And now we got Eileen Cannon, who has made multiple questionable decisions, who was appointed by Trump. I mean, the mafia can't do that.
But she dismissed the entire case, saying his appointment, Smith's appointment, was unconstitutional.
She has no... There's plenty of case law that special counsel is constitutional. What she did was she took advantage of Clarence Thomas's statement, mm-hmm. which was also unnecessary mm-hmm. and irrelevant. And that's you can't be a fan of Donald Trump and not say this is a little shady. That Thomas, an experienced justice who's got a, with no regard to skin color, who's got a black cloud hanging over him because of his own behavior and that of his wife, you can't say that this isn't a little sketchy. Even if you want to celebrate it as a win, you, Team Trump, did not win on your own. And that goes back to the projection. Election interference and cheating. This is a guy who spent his life cheating. Allegedly bought his education from Penn. We've been told by numerous professors of his, they don't even know him because he never showed up to class. And this is the guy we support? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just unfriended a neighbor and blocked a neighbor because of his personal attacks against, not just me, but also family. He thinks he's funny. And one of the pictures that he sent in his comments was some guy with a real big vat, like a butter churning thing, and he's got this, and the caption reads "stirring the pot." Then that's all he's trying to do. He's just, being funny. Like, you're not funny. Nobody in the neighborhood likes you.
Mm.
You make racial jokes and you have a black wife.
Whoa. Serious.
Yeah, I don't get that.
No, that makes no sense.
And yeah. And then he wants to relocate back to Texas because that's a friendly state for her.
Go and leave her wherever she is. She would be smart. Sounds like.
And so with regards to Juan Merchan versus Eileen Cannon, Juan Merchan donated all of $30 to the Biden campaign back in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to say that he did not know he was going to have Trump as a defendant in his court 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that he's got a record of being notably fair and somewhat up the middle, to plug my own show.
Yeah.
And that he's not a conservative, he's not a hardliner, he's not a liberal. He's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Like a judge is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen Cannon was appointed by her defendant and was told by multiple associates of hers to step away.
Mm-hmm.
And she refused.
Well, I like the timing of it too. It's like the decision, I believe she hopes will get lost in all the fanfare of the convention and all the fanfare post attempted assassination. And so let's just sneak this decision in when people aren't paying 100% attention to what I'm doing. So, I mean, it would seem to me it was a smart day to decide to do that.
And that's the thing about Jack Smith. And why, again, I say I'm not as well versed on the court criminal procedures like I used to be, or really like I ever was. Because, like I said, honestly, more than half my career was in Washington, D.C., which means I was a professional bullet catcher. A lot of the other times it was in offices where I was doing criminal investigations or had access to criminal investigations, but I was just given other responsibilities. Some of that was in San Francisco, where I did do criminal investigations, also Philadelphia. But 3 years in LA, I did, upper level things that, we old guys don't have to do, or that we old guys do that, the kids don't get to do. So experience with the criminal system, I've got a lot less of. But I cannot help but think that Jack Smith saw this coming. He's no dummy. And for him to have just made whatever mistake she says he's made, because there was a filing issue too.
No.
I see an appeal in our future on the I'm going to say on the good guy side, because I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm glad that the former president lived through this past weekend's events, because that is not how we roll as a country. But I'm no fan at all, and never will be.
I think, and I'm reflecting some of the comments of the people who respond to me on Facebook and all sorts of other places, that our former president, has virtually locked up the election.
I don't agree. First of all, if this was calculated, the mistake that they made was that they did it all at once.
What do you mean?
The assassination is right before the convention. He's going to get a jump by the end of this week. Everybody gets a jump at the end of their own convention.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing for George Clooney to be holding his money from. Another person that's got to pull their head out of their ass.
Mm-hmm. I'm real disappointed with that. So he's going to give his donation now to the Trump campaign instead of to Biden campaign. Clooney?
It would make sense because he's a billionaire and he'll be getting his big tax breaks.
Okay.
I don't see him doing that. I see him being able to weather that 4-year storm because it's going to make him even more money.
Mm.
But more importantly, our country has become so divided that we've come to a point now with campaigns. If we're not going to win by a landslide, we need to find somebody else. Nobody wants to actually campaign anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were supposed to start a couple points down. That's why you worked for it and felt like you earned the honor to serve your country as a senator, as a congressman, as a president,
mm-hmm.
or your community as a school board member. So that everybody just wants to, and I said it more than a year ago, all President Biden needs to do is get through the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He can govern from the White House easily. If we had a president with polio who was confined to a wheelchair do it, Ronald Reagan did it, pretty much for the most part, spent 6, maybe 7 of those years, of those 8 years, from the White House. He was actually one of the least traveled presidents in modern history. Biden can easily. Trump does not have the smarts that Biden has. I mean, he'd tell you he does, but that's the whole projection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what did I say about Moms for Liberty?
Mm-hmm.
If they have to put liberty in their name, they probably have nothing to do with it. So, yeah, if Trump is going around telling you he's smart, I don't know. I mean, he's like my neighbor. My neighbor admits that he bought his college degree.
Really?
That dad said, as long as you keep coming home with A's.
Check your email. No, I have to talk to Amy for a minute.
Okay. All right. I'll
Hold
mute
on.
this. And
Amy, I'm on podcast with Ross, but did you get my message, text message? What was that? I just woke up. Okay, well.
there we go.
Her appointment was supposed to be, she told me her appointment was for 3:00. I got a message this morning that it's at 2:15 instead. So I needed to make sure she was up and about and ready to go. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. No, I marked so I can edit.
Okay.
What's out, and I muted most of you. I had to find, how to mute you and not me.
Okay. I forget what you were saying.
I'll cut it all out. Well, if Donald Trump needs to tell you he's smart,
okay,
he's probably not.
Mm-hmm.
If my neighbor is stupid enough to tell people that his dad said, if you keep bringing home A's, I'll keep letting you go to for whatever number of degrees you want to get. So he goes to Costa Rica for school, and he buddies up with some guy at this small, crappy little college. It's essentially not a real college. And he majors in Spanish because that's the spoken language down there.
Mm-hmm.
And becomes this guy's drinking buddy
Mm-hmm.
who gives him A's. The guy has a degree in Spanish, can't speak a word of Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Because daddy bought him his degree. Now he works from home. and you know, we're all in that type of situation. You know, you've got a lot of autonomy, flexibility, and whatever. But he works from home and takes calls from his team that he manages out on his boat and brags about that like he's some big shot.
Mm.
You're a bullshitter. That's what you are. And that's what Trump is.
Yeah.
And that's the problem we have, is that people really aren't smart enough to see through it, or they have finally realized it and they're too ashamed to admit it. Because again, back to the projection, that's what this neighbor keeps saying to me. I'm the problem. I'm not smart enough to realize who I'm supporting. I know them both. Don't tell me what I'm smart enough to do and not do. You can't even smell Biden.
Do you want to weigh in as a former Secret Service person on the attempted assassination and what everybody's talking about in the media? And that is, where was the Secret Service and why wasn't that rooftop secured? Do you want to talk about it?
It's outside of the secure perimeter.
That's what they say. Yeah.
As part of a former detail, former President Trump, you don't get the same amount of assets as a sitting president. You just don't. Part of the reason is we don't want to expose those assets if we don't have to. That guy was covered. There was local law enforcement in that area. In fact, they crawled up the side of the building after the guy, only came back down immediately when the guy turned and put the rifle on them.
Mm.
You're not going to be a help dead. Get cover, be a good witness, get on the radio. But it was only seconds after that, when the cop left and let go of the roof ledge and went back down behind cover, that the guy turned back towards the stage, and that's when he opened fire. The sniper, the Secret Service counter sniper officer, he's called a technician. He's from the uniform division, was on the guy. But the roof building that he was on was not a flat roof. It had a slight peak. And the peak was what was hiding the shooter, because he was on the other side of that pitched roof. So the officer couldn't tell, that technician could not tell for sure that he had a gun. Once that he did, you can't just shoot the guy. People say, well, why did he shoot him? For what? Being up there with a telescope? Not a gun? How do you explain that one away? You can't shoot somebody on suspicion of them being an assassin. Especially in a gun-carrying state like Pennsylvania. Yes, politics has something to do with it. But also, rights in that the person really didn't commit a crime yet. Once he aimed towards the president, that's different. But by that point, he's already pulled the trigger. I think the FBI made a rather asinine statement over the weekend that they were surprised with the number of shots that the shooter got off. It was an AR-15. We're not talking about Oswald in the book depository, allegedly, even though I don't think he was. We're not talking about Oswald with a bolt action, shitty bolt action rifle. We're talking about a weapon made for getting multiple shots off. And so that he was neutralized as fast as he was, I think is impressive. The one thing in Monday morning quarterbacking this that I find a little cringeworthy for somebody that knows what they're looking at. When the shift agents covered him on the stage and pushed him down, and they all got up and stood relatively almost the same spot where he was shot at, I think they stood way too soon and for way too long. If, first of all, that podium is your basic podium. There's nothing to that podium. The actual podium given to the president gets put on stage with a small crane. That's how heavy it is. And then those the barriers that you see going right and left off the podium, in the case of the president and in the case this past week, are steel. So that's not just concealment, that's cover. That's going to give you some protection against a bullet. Or for that matter, against possibly a blast. So why you would leave that, I have no idea. Until it's time to leave, as in go to the cars or get them off stage. The saying among bodyguards is get them off the X, meaning get them out of the bullseye. When you stand up virtually in the same spot where he was just shot at and you don't move, you're putting them on the X. With your body around him or not is irrelevant. That rifle bullet's going to go right through you and your vest and through him. And if it's a headshot, it doesn't matter. So that's what I would have done differently. You hear them say, you hear them on, at least on the NBC feed, you hear them say about, all right, we're ready, go. And somebody holds them. They keep them in that same spot, which, again, they confirm. You can hear somebody mention Hawkeye. That's that's a code name for one of the teams that helps us in the course of a protection detail. That Hawkeye was ready to help them get to the cars. They waited for that. It's another asset. They waited for that. Okay, fine. Wait for Hawkeye. Do it down behind the steel. Then you see two SWAT teams circle the stage. The ones in black was Secret Service. Those were agents. That SWAT team was made up of agents. The snipers on the roof were made up of uniform division officers, what's called technicians. Their actual title would be technician instead of officer. And then you see another team around the stage that's in green. That's a counterpart. That's a local counterpart. Presumably the Pennsylvania State Police, but maybe one of the county sheriff's offices. I don't know. But that's one of the local or state agencies. And then they also would help get to the cars. But again, the one thing that I would have done differently was keep him down until they're ready to move.
Well, I presumed that that they had already eliminated the shooter and felt it was safe to move him.
That's the problem. you have no idea how many shooters there are.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, okay, shooter's done. You know, we see that mistake made in the academy all the time. You know, I search you for a weapon, start at your feet maybe and work my way up, or start your shoulders, work my way down. And I start at your feet and I find a knife in your boot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got it. Okay, we can go now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 4 other knives on you. Just because you found one weapon in that search, don't stop until the entire body is searched.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you've neutralized one shooter
Well,
doesn't
let
mean
me
he's the
ask you
only one.
this. Are you suggesting then that because these protocols were not followed to get him off the, not get him off the X or whatever, secure him, are you suggesting there was some kind of staging of this event?
I've heard that. I've even, when it was presented to me, the facts that were presented with it made it look pretty good, honestly. Um, Everybody's saying there's no blood on his hand. You know, what did he put up? You know, well, I mean, maybe he didn't touch his ear. Maybe he didn't touch the space where it was bleeding. Um, the other thing was somebody pointed out that he's got a relationship with the McMahons and the WWE,
Mm-hmm.
and that perhaps he razored his ear
Mm-hmm.
um, to make it bleed, to make it look like he was hit. And when I'm hearing all that, I'm like, wow, this is making sense. But then, you know, I see the rest of the things that have fallen into place. You know, a bystander is dead, others are wounded. There
Mm-hmm.
was a real shooter. That person's dead by our hands, you know, the snipers. So, stage, I don't, it's a lot less. I mean, the guy has told some whoppers. You know, maybe this is his crown jewel, but that's a hard sell for me at this point. Um, I think the bigger issue is the agents that are on the president are from the president's detail. The agents that are on a candidate are from the field offices. And they're on for like 3 weeks at a pop where they're not doing nothing but traveling with that guy. And if, you know, Trump spent the past 12 days at home, they're in Mar-a-Lago. They're not in their field office. And so it's 3 weeks straight of traveling. And then another team comes in for 3 weeks. And then a third team comes in for 3 weeks. And then you're back 6 weeks later. They are not as thoroughly, heavily trained or as experienced
Experience, probably. Yeah.
as the sitting president's people. Not that all of them belong on the varsity either. You know, there's some knuckleheads that get through to the president and vice president's detail. I think, you know, I saw some other. Usually the working shift is not the one that draws their guns because their hands are on the protectee. And I saw some had guns out. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if you already have the suspicion that this is a long gun, a rifle, your handgun ain't
No
going to do
need.
too much.
Mm-hmm.
Your hands belong on the president, on the former president. But again, my biggest thing was keep him concealed and covered and get him off the X. even if that means just getting down behind steel. Get him down behind steel. When you're ready, get him off the stage. Hawkeye is not from the field office. That's what they do. And they practice more than they play. So they know what they're doing. And if you leave the stage without them, I promise you they're going to catch up to you quickly. You know, I think you could have moved. And ultimately, Trump survived it. The only thing that he's not survived with is part of his ear. I think he'll, for as much as I wish he would listen more, I think he'll still be able to, should he choose to. But I think in light of recent events, I don't see that happening either.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. Anyway, so it will... Well, Chinese curse, right? Live in interesting times, and here we are.
Your takeaway should be that to develop your opinion of the past weekend and to develop your opinion of today's court decision, like I constantly teach and constantly say on Up the Middle, do your homework and let intelligence dictate policy, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. So in other words, let the facts help you form your opinion. And if you don't have facts, don't use anything to form that opinion. You can hear so-called experts like me talking all day, because I promise you we are. Don't let that be the be-all and end-all just because I said so.
Speaking of homework, one of the things I saw on a Facebook post, somebody commented to you about your some of the statements you made about Project 2525.
2025 and Project A47.
Right, 2025. Yeah. That, there's all this talk that we're ending Social Security and, overtime pay for this, that, and the other thing. Did you have any comments in response to those criticisms of your post? Maybe you didn't see it.
I did. One of it was that I need to block, I forget what it's called now, this so-called fact-checking news agency that doesn't hide the fact that they're very conservative and right-wing, and that they were hired by Facebook to police Facebook for inaccurate information, or at least what they believe to be inaccurate information. In other words, liberal, progressive, non-conservative viewpoints. I've been saying that Zuckerberg is a conservative. He's from a good old boy town near the Clintons, actually. That's very right-leaning. He went to Harvard, which is not exactly the libtard school everybody makes it out to be. Mm-hmm. So I blocked that company, and my other pages will do the same thing before I post something like that on it. As far as, is everything in there going to happen? Or is everything that the 2025 project is accused of saying really what they're saying? Well, perception is reality. If everybody thinks that's what they're going to say, then that's what they're going to say. Mm-hmm. Or at least everybody's going to believe that. And they're not doing anything to counter it. Somebody said that they're rebranding and becoming, whatever it is, Agenda 47, I mean A47. That's Trump's agenda, separate from 2025, even though it's almost identical. So for Trump to say that he's not having anything to do with Project 2025 and then to turn around and put out his own agenda, which is damn near close to a carbon copy of it. Again, this is the guy that we hold up to holding up the truth and to hold justice. No. And David Beckmeyer's right. If it's the people who are too stupid to realize they've been had, it's the people who are just digging their heels in because they don't want to admit it. But that's all that's left. And instead of saying that they're part of the problem, progressives, independents, also known as the rest of the world, even other conservatives like Blake Fisher from Up the Middle, who's the homeless conservative, because he's not a Trump fan, but he doesn't feel like he's got a place to be with other conservatives right now. Mm-hmm. These are the people that need to welcome Trump supporters into their circles and let them know there is a better way. That way might not be perfect either, but it's better. Mm-hmm. And that's what the whole, Biden's, 5 points down. And why they call it a campaign. Mm-hmm. Get out there and tell them why you should be 5 points up. Donald Trump's not doing that.
So you haven't given up?
No, I do believe Democrats can pull this out. The sad part about it is that neither party is too terribly bright. They love screwing themselves. The Republicans have done absolutely nothing in the House besides recently pass a bill that was already passed. Last week, they passed a bill called SAVE. And I don't know, it's an acronym for essentially securing votes such that you cannot be an illegal immigrant and vote in a federal election. You can already not be an illegal immigrant and vote in a federal election.
Right.
That's already how it is. But like I've always said throughout my political science career, there's nothing like a good old-fashioned Republican scare tactic. They want to say, they're bringing all these immigrants over the border to vote. No, they're not. This is a land of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And nobody's coming from a prison either. There's literally nothing supporting that. Zero. So if you're a Trump supporter listening to this, do your homework and write to me and tell me where you're seeing that so I can help you debunk it with something intelligent. And Fox News is not intelligent. Hannity is not intelligent. Tucker Carlson is not intelligent. Reports from there are at least a little better. So, yeah, like I said, let intelligence dictate policy. Find the facts, then form your opinion.
Well, that's a good way to, to send us forth with a little bit of positivism today. And God knows many of us really need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. A nice solid lottery ticket would be really good right now.
Wouldn't it?
So I could be one of those billionaires that get the tax breaks.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Let's be one of those.
Yeah.
Well, we can't win if we don't play. So
that's it. You got to play to win.
That's what they tell us all the time, right?
Yeah. How's
okay?
Did Paul do okay today?
Oh, I don't know. He's still there.
Oh, that could be good news.
Yeah, he left this morning with hopes that, that he would do really well. I don't know if I told you last week, I did really well a week or so ago when we went up to dinner.
Oh, you
And
say that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he had invested or used some of the money that they give him to play, and he said, "You sit down, you play." Well, I walked away a whole lot heavier.
After
In
winning.
all,
Oh yeah,
it
good.
was really good. I think I
That's the
think
move.
then the next week, I think he probably gave it back to them, but or at least some of it.
Yeah, I heard the 65 was the number. It was, I think he called or something, or he was
Yeah, I
in the
can't
room or
remember.
something.
Oh, right, right,
Yeah,
right. That was after my big win. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's good. Anyway, all right. Well, I don't know how long we've been talking here, but I need, as I said,
We got about 45 minutes in the can today.
good enough. Good enough.
Yep,
So
yep, yep,
keep in touch,
yep.
and it'll be an interesting week, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hello to Amy too.
All right. You take care now. I'm Jane Stahl,
And I'm Yergz.
and this is your turn.
Both sides now.
There you
Hey,
go.
everybody. See you next week.